2004, the show of the season. After many years of promise, the Leeds Rhinos finally delivered, winning the Super League trophy for the first time in their history. They followed that up with a win over Canterbury Bulldogs in 2005, the curtain raiser to what promised to be a fantastic season.
I know there's expectations out there, and there is with any club or any team that you coach, and every team would have their own expectations as well, and they're the most important ones, the internal ones, the team's expectations of what they want to achieve and how they want to go about their business and how they want to go out about their season, and that's the real important one. It's, you know, it's nice to get into a position where everybody expects you to win every time. It means you're a pretty good team.
They expected plenty of tough competition, not least from their arch rivals and last year's beaten finalist Bradford.
To come away trophy loss like that, to get to grand final and lose is difficult for the team to take, but it tends to inspire you in pre-season training. Everybody wants to rip in and train that a little bit harder.
So the Bulls and the Rhinos get top billing for 2005, at least as far as the predictions go. But there was one team which the season before had failed to set the screen alight, and that was St Helens. They'd finished fifth, which by their own high standards was something of a failure, and one upon which they were determined to improve. They'd even hired a superstar to help get them back into the limelight.
Jamie Lyon was billed as the best centre in the world. He flew halfway across it to help the Saints campaign.
He was just infectious. He was a person people wanted to be around off the field. He was a person that they absolutely had an aura of his talent at training. I kept saying to everyone, listen, wait till it gets drier, because Jamie will really come into his own even more then. He just fitted in so well. He's just a fantastic kid in regard to not only his talent but his personality. I thought at the start of the year, I was asked, well, how do you think we'll go? I said, we'll be in two finals. We'll be in the Challenge Cup final and Super League final. I thought we'd be in the final against Leeds. I thought Leeds and St Helens were by far the best two teams in Super League in regard to the quality of the squad and also the skill and the speed. So I thought we could win trophies.
That, of course, was the aim of all three teams, not to mention 9 other clubs who were not there just to make up the numbers. The important thing for each of them was to get off to a good start and show the world they meant business.
It's there.
We knew what a tough ask it is going to Hull, and I remember the night it was wet and windy. It was a close game, and to start off with 2 points, away at Hull was great.
The Rhinos had their first 2 points, and so did St Helens, a 40 points to 18 win over Widnes. It meant that when the Saints and the Rhinos clashed in round 2, one of them was going to record their first defeat of the season.
You know, it's going to be a challenge every time you play St Helens. They're a very, very dangerous team, and so yeah, it was a pretty tough start to the season.
We're a little bit underdone, and I deliberately made us a little bit underdone because we dropped off at the end of last year, and I knew that the Challenge Cup was at the end of the year in Super League, so it's going to get fairly hectic at the end of the year.
Maguire, and he finds Richie Navas, and Navas comes up with a try for Leeds.
In the Leeds game, I thought we performed really well. I think the game could have gone either way. We was happy with the performance, obviously not the result. But it showed that we was up for a good season.
Yeah, I think it was important for us to win most of our home games, and Saints coming is always going to be a tough one. And we were very pleased with that 2 points as well. I think, like you said, it meant we had a good start to the year, and we beat 2 of our nearest rivals, so it was a great start for us.
It's there.
It was one of 7 straight wins for Leeds, including defeats of Widnes, Huddersfield, Warrington, Salford and Bradford. While the Rhinos had been surging ahead in Super League 10, their biggest rivals had had a torrid start.
We had a good pre-season camp, or we thought we did, with a number of setbacks in relation to people not being available. Whilst we thought we were doing pretty well, we probably weren't quite as ready to start the season as we thought we might be.
In contrast, it seems, the visitors in round one, Wakefield Wildcats, were fully prepared, dominating the game in the forwards, where Bradford traditionally excelled. It was a game the Wildcats never looked like losing.
We got beaten by a good team on the day, you know. They played well, they were strong, and we got into one of those arm wrestles that we couldn't quite come out of the other side of, so it wasn't the best start for us, you know. We were beaten and well beaten, you know, by the better team on the day.
Round two and a chance to make amends at Widnes, though the reality didn't match the theory. 2 games down, no league points for the Bulls.
We're just thinking what's going on here. You know, 2 teams that probably realistically might not make the top 6 have beaten us, and people have been talking about them being in, you know, kind of relegation fight, and they've knocked us off, and it was very hard to say.
It was the first time, I think, that for a while we'd had the barrel of a gun pointed at us, you know, and it was loaded. People were asking questions of us and saying, you can't do this and you haven't got that anymore, and a lot of panic and ridiculous things.
Staring down that barrel, they face the Warriors on their turf.
Wigan's got them stretched. They have, and here is Vialecki. And Vialecki scores for the Wigan Warriors. This is Newton. He stabs it to the in goal. It bounces off the post kindly. It's Carl Pratt, and he shows the ball away, and they're over the line.
Well, they think of a 1 point, perhaps.
After being 27 points to 12 down, Deacon's conversion puts them 1 point ahead and wins them the game.
Crisis at Bradford. What crisis?
I think that match showed the character, even though we hadn't been playing well, the character that was going to be shown throughout the rest of the season, that we managed to come from behind at Wigan and win the game. It showed how much it meant to the players that we needed to win that game. It was an important one for us. I think things could have got even worse if we'd have lost that game.
Instead, it inspired a revival, leading to wins over London and Leigh, and a tense battle against Hull, which took them to 4th in the table. Then came the Easter weekend. 2 games in 4 days, and a real test of character.
The second game over Easter is a lottery, literally. You just don't train between the 2 games when you've got a 3-day turnaround, and it's more akin to Japanese endurance, what we do to our
In round 4, they'd had us all on the edge of our seats with a classic at the Halliwell Jones.
Oh, the ball is dropped, and I think they might have a try here. Yes, he has. goes. Mickey Hyam gets the ball away. They must be in St Helens. They are. Clark. Oh, Westwood.
Apple's try put the Wolves ahead by 16 points to 4. Only 10 minutes remained on the clock. And then the classic Saints comeback began.
Back it goes to Albert. Saints are in. The try is given.
With the Wolves just ahead, the Warrington fans count down to victory. And with the last kick of the game...
Who's got it? Oh, it bounces back. Saints have got it. Cunningham could have scored here.
Absolutely unbelievable game. It just showed you 3 tries in 6 minutes. Who would have thought St Helens could win? And what we spoke at half time was, it come down the last 5 minutes, we might have to score 2 tries. It was really weird. You know, he would talk about at half time, talk about scoring 2 tries in 5 minutes and how we go about it. And I remember myself and the players looking at each other saying, geez, you know, that's really spooky, that.
Big wins over Salford and this one against Wakefield prepared Saints for the Easter parade, posting 1 loss against Wigan and their win over Bradford.
That spurred Saints on to another 4 wins on the trot, the last of that sequence being another thriller against Warrington. Cover your eyes, Wolves fans. Here comes another nail-biter.
Cunningham. Saints threatening the Warrington line again with Long will score. And how's this from Gross? Gets the ball back to Nathan Ward, who will score for Warrington. Don't know whether Mr Silverwood missed a Warrington hand in there. But anyway, he said it's 4 tackles. This will be the last then on Breers. No play on. Breers bounces out and gets away. This is Clark. It's a good ball to Gleeson. He steps inside Long. And Gleeson's away. He has Farfili with him. That's a wonderful try. Vinnie Anderson. Sculthorpe gets the ball away to Hyam. He goes back around the grounded players. Mickey Hyam. Long with the drop goal attempt.
Great win for us. You know, again, Warrington were on a roll and really playing well. So you know, just to pick the points up, that's what wins you the league.
But this, of course, is St Helens, the club that's guaranteed to deliver more plot twists than any Hollywood blockbuster. Here we have a team on a roll, just 2 points behind the league leaders, and then they sack their coach.
You know, it's unbelievable. You know, we're flying. We're getting players back from injury. The whole place is buzzing. Fans are buzzing after one of the best victories of the year. And I'm excited. I turn up to work on a Tuesday, and you know, like I said, there's 2 people sitting in a Sherman tank trying to run over me. But you know, lucky I've got up and got on with it.
St Helens flew in their replacements, the former New Zealand international coach Daniel Anderson.
You know, I knew that they were obviously a very, very strong club with some very, very talented players. So the aim was just to, I guess, guide and roll alongside them and just make some subtle changes if necessary, week by week.
His first challenge, league leaders Leeds. They were 4 points ahead in the table by now, round 15, with just 1 defeat against Wakefield. St Helens needed a win now to keep them within reach.
Cunningham, out it comes to Lyon. They've got Darren Albert wide. It must be. It is. It's Sean Long. And Long sees the gap and scores. Calderwood. Off of St Helens' hand. Jamie Jones Buchanan has touched down.
Daniel had only just taken over, and I knew there was some danger in that, and they were very, very good that night. And I knew there was more danger to come with him in charge there, because I've worked with him. I know he's a quality coach, so I didn't think he'd be able to get it started that quick, but unfortunately he did on that night.
That was an amazing game for us, and that's one of them games, like I said, where you get on a roll and it's tough to stop, and Leeds just didn't have anything, you know, against us. We just really turned it on, and everyone played the part.
So, Saints on a high and ready to take the Bulls by the horns. Since their double disaster at Easter, Bradford was still looking for some consistency. They'd notched up 4 solid wins against Huddersfield, Wigan, Salford and London, but they were sandwiched between losses against Warrington that had left them dazed and confused. And then came St Helens.
A sending off meant that Bradford had been a player down for most of the game, but the scale of this defeat still shocked them to the core.
Here is Cunningham, great ball back on the inside. Here's the first try away. John Wilkin. Long will fire it wide. And this is Wilkin on a hat-trick, finds Jamie Lyon, who busts through the tackle of Carl Pratt and finds the support from Long. And Sean Long has got the time to even improve the angle.
Oh, the young kid's away.
Roby will not be denied here. And Roby over under the sticks.
It was a dark day, that one. We prepared well for the game, you know, and thought we could go in there playing well. But it just shows, like you say, I spoke about the Salford game before, that it's quite easily done for a team to score that many points. But a Bradford team should never get beat like that at home. And you know, it was the most embarrassing day for me and a lot of other players in a Bradford shirt. It was terrible.
That's when the real head scratching started. You know, I remember working through the night after that one with the staff and saying, you know, we've got to change direction the way we're going and we've got to improve in certain areas as a staff. And you know, we reinforced that message with the players the day after. It didn't mean to say we would turn the corner, but I think from then there were signs that practices were better, they were more intense, and eventually towards the back end of the year, I think that defeat really helped us along the way.
That loss to St Helens put Bradford in 5th position, 10 points behind Leeds. Super League 10 was turning out to be a nightmare. They met Leeds in round 19, desperate for a consistent performance.
Feints to go right, goes left, they're in here with Senior. Danny Ward is on the charge, he's got support from Danny Maguire. The Danny boys combine. Maguire gets his second of the game. Harris, wide to Ben Harris, and Harris, the other Harris that is, gets over the line. Ellis bumps off the tackle from Ben Harris. Here goes Kevin Sinfield. Sinfield has the man inside, who is one of the world's best centres, Keith Senior, who gets his second try of the night.
It was a special night, remember it. You know, the crowd were fantastic for us, and I think we went ahead and they came back with about 20 minutes to go and had a real go at us. That game was a bit of a turning point for ourselves, because when Leeds went quite far in front in the game, I remember being behind the post and just saying, look, hey, we don't deserve this kind of you know, loss. Let's just dig in here for this last 10, well, I think 20 minutes. The last 20 minutes we showed what we could do, and we got some confidence out of that, the way that everybody dug in, and you know, we didn't give in like perhaps we did against St Helens. Everyone stuck to their guns and we come away with a couple of tries at the end, and even though we got beaten that way, it gives us some confidence.
Bradford's rocky season was to turn after that. Like Rocky, they'd hit the canvas a few times, but they'd patched up their wounds, jumped back into the ring and pulled no punches. They were to go the rest of the season unbeaten.
We really realistically want to shake this competition up. As I said, we were going to do it at the end. We've got to finish as high as we possibly can in the 6th. This is when we made our decision. We've got to, in reality, go for 3rd. And we knew then, to get 3rd, we'd have to go to Leeds and beat Leeds, and have to go to St Helens and beat St Helens. We couldn't afford any more slip.
The Bradford Bulls steamroller was back on the road, and they looked formidable. Vainicolo's record-breaking 6-try haul against Hull in round 26 was a great metaphor for their drive and determination. They wanted 3rd place, and they got it.
He's got 4. Leslie Vainicolo, there's 5. Gonna be 6 tries in the match, and a new Super League record for Leslie Vainicolo.
In contrast, Leeds Rhinos' seeming invincibility was soon to be questioned. Their round 19 win over Bradford was followed by their third defeat of the season, a long, long way from Yorkshire.
London Broncos took their home tie against Leeds on the road to La Belle France.
Yeah, good down there. We'd been down there in pre-season, so we had a bit of a leg up going into the game. We're very comfortable with the environment. A lot of the talk was about the weather conditions, and the tip for everyone in Super League is it's hot when you go down there, so you do have to prepare a little bit differently, mentally and physically.
We went out there and did a pretty good job in the first half, and we had a really strong wind behind us, and then we turned around and we had a really strong wind in our face, and London come home with wet sails. They really were. They were very, very good and took their opportunities. They chanced their arm. They probably didn't do that so much in the first half, and they chanced their arm in the second half, and it just all clicked. And I think we conceded 7 penalties in a row as well. And we just, it was just one of those halves of rugby league that you just rather, forget or you wish never happened. But each time those things happen, you learn from them and get tougher and go away and try to rectify them.
They were able to do just that soon afterwards. They had 3 strong wins over Salford, Warrington and Leigh before meeting London again and making up for les points perdus in France. But their next game against high-flying Bradford the week before their appearance in the Challenge Cup final was to have greater consequences than the loss of 2 league points.
It's with Sinfield. A kick wide looking for Lee Smith. Finds it, and Smith is in! It's a pass to Shontaine Harpy. Here's Leslie Viner-Colo. Oh, great tackle.
Beautiful stuff.
And Harpy looking for the try. He's got it down.
Practically neck and neck, but then came the turning point, an injury to Keith Senior.
It was a 5-minute break for Keith to get Keith off on the stretcher, and I think it took some, it took some emotion, put some emotion in the game, and put some thoughts in our players' heads. And the week before such a big match, but I think initially that the thoughts were probably we all felt for Keith and feared for him, and then probably in some ways we probably all put ourselves in those sort of positions of what if it was me. So I think that 5-minute break was crucial, and Bradford grew from that. I could see them, grow in confidence, and we probably diminished there a little bit.
Robbie Paul Deacon, Paul Deacon for Bradford!
Leeds now drop from the first position they'd held all season to second. The league leaders' trophy slipped from their grasp.
To win the for and against, and by the margin that we won it, it's quite unusual not to win the competition too. It's just, the for and against usually tells a tale of the team's fortune of the season, and this year it didn't. And Saints, showed that they could win more games and maybe closer margins than what we actually did.
Yes, despite their tumultuous season off the pitch, St Helens held their nerve and took the top spot, notching up some memorable wins along the way. Games against Wigan always have that extra spice, but this one in round 21 had that little bit more. It marked the return to Knowsley Road of Ian Millward, now the boss at Wigan.
It's a ground I'd sat at for 6 years, so it's obviously there's a lot of memories come back, all fantastic at that ground. So but days like that puts a finale to my role at St Helens. Wigan's my club now, and I'm very excited about it.
Aspinall must score and does under the sticks for Wigan.
I think we've done about 9 games or something, not beating them in the Super League. Something the fans were happy with the record, obviously being the local rivals. But we obviously we've gone well in the league, but we just couldn't seem to turn it around against Wigan.
Until now, that is.
Danger signs here for Wigan. Tallow gets the ball away to Gardner. Gardner's too quick. Gardner's too quick for them. Sculthorpe, Scott Moore, quick hands, and again brilliant stuff. Quick play the ball. Cunningham looking to pinch one himself. Cunningham with all the strength, but hauled back. Dumps the ball back to Jamie Lyon. Lyon over the top to Albert. It's the second St Helens try.
That was their first Super League victory over Wigan in 3 years. 5 games later, they were to meet them again and beat them again.
This is the last. It's picked up by Cunningham. It's a try for St Helens. Here is Wellens, and Wellens skips inside them, and Wellens scores.
But there was a price to pay.
Silly play there by Terry Newton. Watch this. Ready, whack.
Terry Newton was to be banned for 10 games for the offences, and though St Helens could take plenty of pride from lifting the league leaders' trophy, the injuries took their toll. Sculthorpe and Albert were already written off for the rest of the season. Now Long joined that list.
It was a bittersweet win because it was the first time we'd won at JJB in about 5 years. But in that time, in the first half there, we lost 3 key players, and 2 of them for the season.
Weakened by those injuries, they lost to Bradford the following week, bringing 28 dramatic rounds of Super League to a close.
Well, what a gripping show. Heroes and villains, a last gasp winner, and a team coming up on the rails with the odds stacked against it. But it meant there were 3 other playoff places left, and 9 other teams clamouring for a part of the action, despite what life throws at you. Now, not everybody's destined to be at the top, but that doesn't mean there's nothing left to fight for. In Super League 10, the battle for 4th, 5th and 6th was to be more hotly contested than ever before, but not necessarily by the usual suspects.
One of the most compelling battles of Super League 10 turned out to be the 5th to 6th. In the mix were Huddersfield, London and Wigan. And who could imagine the playoffs without Wigan? The Warriors had never failed to qualify, and before the season kicked off, there was no reason to doubt that they would in 2005. They'd recruited well, bringing in Kiwi international Jerry Siu, Wayne Godwin from Castleford and Dennis Moran from London. But they'd lost a large part of their established core, including captain Andy Farrell, who dropped the bombshell he was off to Union.
The biggest blow to the club was losing Andy Farrell. Faz made a decision. He wanted to go to rugby union, and I think everybody, backed him what he wanted to do. But nonetheless, it was a huge loss to miss that person from the dressing room. So not the best sort of start to the season. But we still knew we had some quality players around, so we were confident going into the season.
That confidence was soon to be put to the test. Their opening fixture against Salford was a nervy affair, settled by a late David Allen try. Then they travelled to Wakefield, where they ended up on the wrong side of a tight final scoreline.
I guess we've always had tough games against Wakefield, at Wakefield, and in the past we've got through with a narrow victory after, a close scrape. But then that turned into a loss this year, and I think that was a theme that ran through the year. Those games in the past that were close and tight games, at home maybe against Huddersfield, etc., they turned into losses for us. So that was sort of the feeling throughout the season.
It was a theme that would be continued first against Bradford and then in round 5 against London. They had wins over Widnes and Leigh, but that meant that by round 7 they'd already lost half their games. Not the best preparation for their traditional Good Friday meeting with St Helens. Soon to leave skipper Andy Farrell was there for moral support. Though he didn't play, his presence alone was a lift.
And this is Terry Newton, and he finds Danny Orr. It's a great ball to Badlinski. It's held on, and it's first blood to Wigan in the shape of Danny Tickle. Oh, wonderful day here from Wigan. They're running riot, and they've got Badlinski in support. It's the second try for Wigan, right under the six. And Wilkin has got Radlinski, and he's lost Radlinski. He finds Roby, and Roby dumps it down to Long. It goes over the top to Vinnie Anderson. 2-on-1 here, brilliant pass. What a pass from Vinnie Anderson to Jamie Ryan. Quick play the ball, that's what they need. Vinnie Anderson again, wide to Wilkin. They're 10 metres away with Newton. Oh, and a long pass wide to Bielicki. He's escaped the net. Here's Dallas. Dallas won't be stopped.
A Wigan win, but at a cost. Already depleted by injury in this game, they then lost Sean O'Loughlin, out for the rest of the season.
The way they played in front of a full house and in the biggest crowd ever at the stadium was sensational. And that sort of a game gave us a lift, gives a tremendous lift for that Easter weekend. So the Saints result was great, but then we went on a Hull on a Monday, having lost a few more players from the Saints game, and we went and won that game. So there was a huge Easter weekend, and there was a feeling that that maybe no matter what's gone on in the past and those close games we lost, that maybe we could turn it around.
One of only 2 teams to get the maximum 4 points over Easter, Wigan's confidence was high, but the good mood wasn't to last as they came up against Huddersfield away.
When you're coming off the back of beating St Helens at home and Hull away, you want to be able to go to Huddersfield and win that game. And we couldn't have gone into the game with any better form behind us, and we lost it. And we were always second best in that game.
2 more losses to Leeds and Bradford followed, and the strain is beginning to tell. Wigan are outside of the 6 and desperate for points when they face strugglers Widnes. Again, it looks like the points were going to slip away when Moran pops over the winning drop goal.
I think Widnes maybe, on reflection, might have deserved a draw. But we were happy we'd take the win, and we'd hope then, well, maybe that might be a wake-up call, that we can't afford to leave it that late in games, but I don't think we listened to the message.
That's because they lost the next 2 games too. 2 close affairs against Warrington and Huddersfield. At the halfway point, they'd lost more games than they'd won. Time for drastic action. Dennis Betts has dropped as head coach, and in his place... It was inevitable that a coach with Ian Millward's CV would bounce back soon. When the offer came from Wigan, he took it without hesitation. He got them off to a winning start against Salford, but then in round 16, it was time to face their big rivals for 6, the London Broncos.
It was to be a significant game here at the JJB, not just for the Warriors, but for the Broncos too. When they came to Wigan, they were just recovering from a 7-game losing streak, but the season had started so well. As round 1 approached, London Broncos, with a team full of new faces, was something of an unknown quantity, and not just for the fans.
Didn't know really what we had to work with until really the first training session. Took a bit of a different approach on the first training session. Basically went into a simulated game straight away before we'd done any conditioning or anything together. Just threw them a ball and sort of go for it, show me what you got. That's when things started getting exciting. I knew I had a better squad than we've had before in previous times. Just couldn't believe the skill level, the speed, the attitude of the guys was fantastic.
The opening game against Warrington was to give Tony Ray plenty of indicators, and all positive ones.
My collective memory at the end was a feeling of, I like to fight, I like that they've got a great attitude, and that was my honest feeling at full time. I said, this is good news.
Their win over Wigan was one reason to be cheerful, but away losses to Bradford and Salford were a little more worrying.
All the early games we win one, lose one, win one, lose one. So we were responding to losses, but we weren't responding to winners. So we had to adjust a little bit on how our weeks would go, and pretty much our mental preparation would go after a win. A big challenge was to win and then win again.
And they did, getting the result against Wigan and following it up with a 66-8 win over Widnes.
And it was a good game of rugby league. You know, we won the game, but either team could have won it. I thought it was a real even contest, and it was a real high quality performance. I've actually watched it a couple of times since later in the year as a reference point, you know, as to some indicators on performance for us.
So far, the Broncos were unbeaten at home, but the following week, that record came to an end. Yes, 7 may be lucky for some, but not for the Broncos. They went on a 7-game losing streak after their win at Widnes. They were also having a tumultuous time off the pitch, with the club going into administration.
We went on the field really expecting to get the result, and when we didn't get it, on the field we went quiet. When you go quiet, you lose your confidence. And so the next week when we went on, expected it to happen, and didn't happen again. We went quiet, we became solo, we didn't start playing as a team. Confidence goes, and it got into a snowball of expecting it to turn things around, but it wasn't actually happening for us because we were down on confidence and we'd gone quiet on each other.
At the halfway point of the season, they managed to turn it around, winning at home to Salford, and then came that round 16 game against Wigan. It was their first home win of the season and something of a relief.
It was a special moment at JJB, which is a fantastic ground. And to win that game and double it up against Wigan, which again was, you know, something that had never been done, I don't think, by London, it was fantastic. And just to beat them there and to get our first win was very much a relief as well.
Because Wigan were big rivals for 6, that win was worth 4 points for the Broncos. It was part of a purple patch for them. After 7 losses on the run, they now strung together 7 games without a defeat. That sequence included 2 thrilling draws, one against Hull in Wales, the other away at St Helens. Plenty to celebrate off the pitch too. The Broncos had announced a merger with the Union club Harlequins. They were to move here to the Stoop and change their name. It meant that this season was going to be the last as the London Broncos, but their future was secure.
The initial reaction was of disappointment. I think the guys felt like responsible because they were the last of the Broncos, that they felt a little bit responsible to that. But once we explained that our responsibility actually was to do that proudly, be the last of the Mohicans and take the colours out in the best possible way. And I think we all got excited by that, the fact that we could play our part. The decision was already made, and then got on with doing that. And no thought of Harlequins, just all thoughts of Broncos.
So for 6 rounds now, London had had that 6th spot, but trying to wrestle it from them, the Huddersfield Giants. Pre-season, the Giants had to get to grips with a disappointing end to 2004.
That's good, Giants, a good stretch.
This year, though, hopes were high that the sleeping Giants would rise from their slumber. Top 6 was the target, the starting point away at New Boys Lee Centurions.
We knew once we'd got the league fixture in our mind that it was going to be a massive challenge for us. I remember distinctly the weather that day being a really poor day weather-wise, and like you said, there were so many distractions going into the game, floodlight failure and the state of the field really, and it was a very potential banana skinner.
The Giants had Chris Thorman back in their side after a year in Australia playing for Parramatta. Lee in February seemed a long way from there.
It certainly did seem a million miles away. I've got very vivid memories of that league game. I can remember standing on the try line, and we sort of started to warm up, and the floodlights went out. I had a little look over at Brad Drew, and Brad's just shivering away, and he's got chicken pox as well. And I thought, Jesus, I looked at him, I thought, is this the right decision? And I went up to him and I just gave him a wink, and I thought, come on, let's, we might only have to do this once this year in these conditions, so let's have a good crack at it.
A great opening win, but 3 losses followed, including a demoralising 54 points to 10 defeat at home to Leeds.
After about 55 minutes, the score was 22-10, and again the performance of the players was encouraging, but indicators were now that we weren't sustaining it for the full 80 minutes. But at that stage, Leeds were playing at the very best, and obviously they're a massive challenge at Headingley, and we went there and had a real good crack at them, but we just didn't sustain for long enough, really, I suppose, which is an indicator in Super League. You have 5 minutes off and you can get burnt badly.
A nervy start to the season then, but the Easter period was to be a good one for the Giants, winning first against Wakefield on Good Friday and then following it up against Salford on Easter Monday. 2 wins from 2, a big achievement at a demanding period of the season. Then after that effort, they faced Wigan.
The Wigan one was pretty awesome. I sitting down in the dugout, and so far, the first 9 or 10 rounds, Wigan was the best performance by a long shot. And I think the highlight of that was Brad Drew's 90-metre try. I don't think anyone in the stadium realised that Brad could run that fast. Those little legs pumping, I'll never forget it. But I think that was certainly one of the highlights of the season.
In the quest for 6th spot, it was certainly important, but it also gave them confidence to do it again. A win over the Warriors in round 14 will put them in the 6th and keep Wigan out of it. 20 points to 4 down at half-time, the fight back was inspirational and inspired.
Got a bit of a rollicking from John, myself included. Probably the first time during the season that John's, really had a go at some of his players, and I sort of got the team together at half-time and I said, look boys, I'm not having them speak to us like that, you know. I think we need to go out there and show them exactly what we can do.
And Chris Thorman will get over for the first try. Second half for Huddersfield. Thorman again. Back it goes to Brad Drew. Danger here for Wigan. Drew, it's a great run. It's a great pass. It's a fabulous try from Heffin O'Hare.
They're not stopping him, Eddie.
They aren't. This is Thorman. He's going to get in. He is going to get in. Thorman gives Huddersfield the lead.
I'd say probably the highlight of the season for the team. Just showed how much we'd improved, and you know, maybe past couple of seasons we wouldn't have been able to do that. Very memorable match.
That was Huddersfield's first win away at Wigan since 1957, but after that they lost 5 of their next 7 ties. Then came a crucial fixture in that fight for 6, London away.
The Giants knew they had to go away and bring those 2 points home, because London were in the 6 on 20 points, Wigan and Huddersfield just outside on 18. From now on in, every single point would matter.
I remember going into the London game where we had 6 regular starters missing, and on the morning of the game, Marcus St-Hilaire pulled out also. So we had our backs to the wall, really.
It was a win for London, taking them 4 points ahead of Huddersfield now, and things hadn't been going well for Wigan either. Still coming to grips with a string of injuries and a new coach, they came face to face with a Leeds team running hot. It started badly for Wigan and just got worse. Try, follow, try. 70 points with no reply. It was to batter Wigan's points difference and their confidence.
Lowest point of my career so far. I mean, I've lost finals, but to get trying 70 points to nil, I don't know. There's not much you can say. We just didn't do anything right. We were just poor second that day.
It was Wigan's darkest hour of Super League 10. They needed their luck to change, and eventually it did. A loss against Wakefield in round 22, marking something of a turning point. 3 wins followed it, which put them right back in joint 6th. It meant that when they met Leeds again in round 26, they were a different team from the one which had lost so heavily earlier in the season.
We came up with a game plan that we just wanted to minimise our errors and maximise our opportunities with the talent we had. We worked really hard. It was an ebbs and flows in that game. There was times they got in front, we got in front, but I felt the better team won on the day just through just hanging in there. There wasn't much in the game, but it wouldn't be much in the game against a team like Leeds, because we were a very good team.
It meant everything, man. It's unfortunate that this season a win like that has been celebrated so much. What I mean by that is that there used to be regular occurrences, you know, beating Bradford at home and beating St Helens at home and beating Leeds at home, but we've done it difficult this year, so it was just a huge sense of joy that we regained, I think, a lot of credibility with that win. I know Leeds were coming on the back of the Challenge Cup, but the week before the Challenge Cup we beat Hull, and the week after we beat Leeds, so we just showed people that we are contenders and that you write us off with your pearl, really.
Meanwhile, the Broncos are approaching every game knowing there was little room for slip-ups.
There was nothing that we weren't going to do to make the semi-finals. Anything less than making the semi-finals in this season would have been a letdown, and anything less, like I said, wouldn't have been acceptable. So we knew we were in for a tough battle, and we had some strong games ahead of us, but we knew if we looked after ourselves and won our games and looked after our own backyard, then the other teams couldn't catch us.
If he puts this down, they've got a try. They have. This is Luke Dawn. Luke Dawn, great try.
A win full of character that was to underline London's top 6 credentials, but they had to keep a distance between themselves, Wigan and Huddersfield. They simply had to beat the Giants in round 26.
It was certainly a semi-final for us, and we treated it that way. And going into the game, we got some players back, we've got some bodies back, and we're ready to go.
Smart play then, I think, from Earl Crabtree. Put his foot on the back line. But his foot's on the line when he's caught the ball. That's a penalty on halfway to the Huddersfield Giants.
It should be. They've made a real boo-boo there.
And Homono over the top and good hands, and they're in with Bradley Kualalawa. And that is a great try, but it should never be given. It should never be given.
It was a must-win at that time. I think everybody knew that, and it was played that way. Both teams played a little bit tense. We played with a little bit of stress. But again, showed as we did a number of times in the season that there was a high element of toughness and resolve inside of the squad. And you know, a little bit of a feature was some particularly strong defence.
2 points for the Broncos. For the Giants, time's running out.
That loss meant that sixth place was slipping further away, although with 2 more rounds to go, nothing was yet decided. Round 27, though, was to be crucial for all 3 sixth contenders. And the Giants got the awesome task of stopping the Raging Bulls.
Bradford hadn't lost a Super League game since the beginning of July. Now we're in September. It looked like the Giants were going to end that run, but then the Bulls showed their championship mettle.
We were playing some really good football, and I think Bradford were more shocked than anybody else. And unfortunately, they scored, what was it, 5 tries in the last 15 minutes or something ridiculous, and we just seemed to crumble.
Meanwhile, Wigan had the job of taking on league leaders St Helens. It proved to be a derby too far.
I was really happy with our attitude. I was really happy with the way things happened in the game in regards to fight until the end. Unfortunately, we lost the game to a better team.
But even though Wigan and Huddersfield both lost their games, mathematically they could still make the 6 because Salford beat the Broncos. It means that as the last round looms, there's still plenty to play for. Huddersfield, for one, refused to throw in the towel.
Mathematically, it wasn't dead for us. We needed Widnes to beat London, and obviously we'd seen Widnes play really well against us, and I knew what they were capable of, and there was no pressure on Widnes. It was all on London, and we needed to focus on ourselves, and we needed to get a job done against Wigan, and we needed to play well, and we needed to come away with the 2 points, and then have a look if everything else falls into place.
I knew in the last game we weren't going to make the playoffs. I said to the blokes on Monday, this is our last game of the year. Obviously, Huddersfield's last game of the year. Huddersfield's at home. They've been playing well. What we had to make sure was, we had a really good attitude, and we went there to win the game.
Huddersfield's top 6 dream was over. Even if London did lose, there was no way the Giants could catch them now. But they could still take plenty of positives from Super League 10.
Last year we won the games we were expected to win and lost against the big sides heavily. Whereas this year we've won the games that we've expected to win and we've challenged the top sides. I think a great indicator of that is the St Helens games. The year before we conceded on average 50 points a game against Saints, and this year we took them right to the wire on 3 occasions, and we've had a couple of real close contests with Bradford as well, which are all benchmarks and indicators that we have progressed from last year.
To have a chance of making the 6, Wigan now needed London to lose. But they had more to play for than a top 6 place. This was their last home game as the Broncos, and they didn't want to say goodbye on a loss.
It was special, It was emotional for the fans and the coaching staff that had been there for a while. And for us, it was exciting. It was disappointing, but it was exciting at the same time. We knew we were heading to a semi-final. We knew we were heading to something new next year. But to retire the Broncos at their home ground the way we did, I think it was pretty special, and that was how we all saw it.
It ensures London get into the semi-finals, and Wigan miss out for the first time ever.
It's a real test for the club. It's the first time they've been in this situation. It was a real test to see how united and how much galvanising you get from the fans outside the fence, how much support you get in regard to the staff and administration, and also how the players respond. And everyone in the club was, in a warped sense away, it was a learning process I think they needed, to look at all the good things in the club, but also look at the areas that need to be improved. And I think this will probably go down in many years to come, and I'm not talking about a couple of years, in many years to come, as a landmark season for Wigan to go back to where they deserve to be.
So that's the top 3 and 6th spot taken, but leaves 2 more playoff places up for grabs. And the contenders, they were Hull and Warrington. Now, the Wolves had strengthened well in the close season, bringing in players like Martin Gleeson, and they had ambition to match his world-class talent. But finishing 8th the season before had hurt Paul Cullen badly, and he was desperate to do better. How much better? Well, he's not really the speculating kind.
Don't make predictions, because it's ridiculous. It really is. You make yourself look exceptionally foolish. You cannot factor in the variables that happen that either go for you or go against you. You know, as we've seen many times ourselves this year, the game simply is too unpredictable, and the clubs are a lot closer.
They certainly didn't predict a loss away at London in the opening round, nor did they imagine that Lee would take them close in round 2, or that Hull would get the 2 points in round 3. And who could have foreseen that heartbreaking last-second defeat against St Helens?
It took every single ounce of effort they had to come back and take the game in literally the last second of the match. You know, we did that twice through the year with St Helens, and we got a lot of confidence from that.
Still, it left them 10th in the table with only 4 points. They expected to have 6 after their Good Friday game against Salford, but the Reds ruined the Wolves' Easter.
Bad Friday, looking back on it now, to me I think it was a real turning point in the season for a good thing. I think it was one of those games what we needed us to kick on from, and they really give it to us, which I thought was a good thing. I thought the team was showing a bit of complacency, and I thought we were better than what we was, and Salford really give it to us.
Warrington at that stage of the season were really struggling. Paul was under tremendous pressure, and we took them to the sword. We played really well, and it was a real warm day, I remember, back in April, and we just blew Warrington away.
We were booed off the field, we were abused, we were almost destroyed by our own supporters. Now, if that doesn't hit home to 1 or 2 of our guys who crumbled when it wasn't going our way, well, you're never going to learn from that if you can't learn from those situations.
And learn they did. What followed next was the dazzling dozen, 12 performances that pushed them all the way up to 3rd. First up, a win over Widnes. Number 2, bye-bye Bradford. 3, a tri-fest at Trinity. 4, a nail-biter against Hull. 5, well, maybe not a win against Saints, but oh, what a performance. 6, a win over Wigan. 7, a show-stopping game against the Bulls.
The game of the season, bar none, from me and from the coaching staff, was Bradford at Bradford, and we'd probably get more confidence from that performance than any other game this year.
8, another 2 points from Wakefield. 9, a close victory at Huddersfield. 10, 2 points off Lee. 11, revenge over the Reds. And 12, a win by a whisker at Widnes. It had been a breathtaking sequence, and it earned them 3rd spot.
The run what we went on was unbelievable. We needed that consistency to show that we can compete, and we can go along with just not winning the 2 games. We can win 7 on the trot, which we showed.
So the Wolves sitting quite comfortably, but there was a team on the other side of the Pennines out to spoil the party.
Coaches go, but in the 9 years of Super League, only one had been there from the beginning. That record came to an end in 2004 when Sean McRae decided to leave for a job in Sydney. He'd led Hull to the playoffs in Super League 9 and then handed over the reins to his assistant. John Keir's coaching pedigree was a rich one. He'd been head coach for England and had a Challenge Cup win with Sheffield.
It'd been marvellous working with Sean. It'd been thoroughly enjoyable, and I thought that we'd progressed the club in those 2 years. And obviously Sean had a new challenge in South Sydney, and the board felt that I was the right choice for Hull.
Their season opened with a close loss at home to Leeds, but then came 4 wins on the trot. One of those was against Warrington in the snow, but on that day, Hull shone.
Before the start of the season, I took Warrington for the top 6, and I knew that would be a tough game, and I thought that was the performance of our first half dozen games of the season, that one, because it was a good Warrington side. They came to the KC to play, but as you rightly say, we were in control of the game, and we ended up comprehensive winners.
Not all of their results in the first half of the season were quite as convincing, though. There were just 3 points between them and Wakefield, and their wins over London and Widnes were close ones too. But one of the most disappointing performances came in round 10 against bottom of the table Lee.
We went to Lee, got 18 points up, the rain came down. The second 40 minutes against Lee was very disappointing, and they got on a bit of a roll. They still had the enthusiasm back in Super League, and I think Darren Abraham did a reasonably good job with them. and the crowd got behind them. They went 20-18 up, and we scored right at the death through Nathan Blacklock. And we were thankful to come away with a point, but obviously we viewed that as a point drop rather than a point gain.
A loss against Warrington followed, but that seemed to be a catalyst for change. And then in round 13 they met St Helens, a team coming to terms with the sacking of their coach Ian Millwood. Hull took full advantage.
Brilliantly picked up by Horn, flicked out wide. They must be in. Brilliant try here from Whiting. Here is Long. Crossfield kick, that's high and dangerous. Swirling around in the wind, but brilliantly taken! Blacklock! Now Blacklock has got some pace!
The pinnacle of our upturning form was the St Helens game. I think it was 44 points to 6. And although there was the Ian Millward saga going on at that point, and many people use that as an excuse for St Helens' performance, I didn't think we received the plaudits that we deserved, because we played some great rugby league, and we were clinical in our finishing, we were very determined in our defence, and our kicking game was excellent. So that was one of the performances of the season for me.
It consolidated Hull in third spot, and their grip looked tighter than ever. Until, that is, they came up against Yorkshire's big two. Bradford first, then Leeds. 2 losses, no points.
We'd just beaten Bradford in the cup prior to that, and then they came with a steely determination to sort of put our nose out of joint, and they really succeeded in that. They played really well that day, and they got a stranglehold on the game and betted reasonably comfortably at the KC. And then obviously we had to follow that with Leeds. But Leeds was heartening, to tell the truth, Angela, because for 60 minutes it was nip and tuck, and it was only in the last sort of quarter of the game that they got away from us.
It meant they lost their stranglehold on third spot. Warrington had overtaken them. By the time they beat Lee in round 24 with their biggest scoreline of the season, they'd moved back up. In contrast, the Wolves were on a losing streak. They lost to St Helens, Leeds and then Huddersfield to take them down to 5th. But something was about to happen that would rock the world of rugby league and put Warrington back on track. The best player in the world came to play for Warrington.
Who dares wins, etc, etc. And that's what we're about, you know. We have shook the world of rugby league on more than one occasion this year.
It was like a circus, wasn't it? It was, you know, there was great hype about it for months leading up to it as well, and brought, you know, really a lot of exposure to Super League, so that was one of the good things about it. And, you know, the timing of it was probably just wrong for Leeds.
He couldn't put the ball on the tee, but the moment he got it on, he just went into superstar mode. His kick was perfect. It challenged. There was a subliminal message in that. Come and get the ball, and if you come and get it, you're going to be in trouble, because we're ready for this match. And the try that we scored, you know, in the first 60 seconds of that match was beautiful. It really was. It was a 25-metre pass from Andrew Johns to Lee Brays. His line, his angle, the delivery and quality of that ball to Martin Gleeson was of the highest of international standard. Martin Gleeson's in and away to bring in the defenders and toss that ball out the back of his hand to Henry Firefield, and to score and, you know, raise the roof of the Halliwell Jones in the manner in which we did is something that will live in the memory of myself, the players, and probably more importantly the Warrington supporters forever.
Johns, oh brilliant! What a run, what a pass, what a try! Logan Swan, Breers to Gleeson, and Gleeson is in for Warrington. And Grosso, he's fooled them all! Wonderful try from Brent Gross. He's got disc in, wonderful play from Danny Maguire. Wood, Nathan Wood! Drop goal! Johns, he's kicked it! A genius! We are watching a genius tonight.
A classic moment in rugby league, and a packed house was there to see it. It provided the perfect backdrop for one of the crowd favourites, Nathan Wood, to say his goodbyes. But the following week, the circus had to go on the road to Hull for the final round of the regular season. With Bradford now in third, This game would determine who would get 4th and 5th. The winner guaranteed a home tie in the playoffs.
I don't think I was expecting anything less than what they'd shown against Leeds the week before when Andrew got man of the match, and he's totally dominated that game. And you know, I reckon that the players at Warrington had a point to prove to Andrew Johns to say, you know, this is the best player in the world, and I'll show him that. You know, I'm on par with some of the players that he's played with in Origin football or at Newcastle Knights.
Here is Breers, and Breers with the ball to Logan Swan, and Logan Swan gets over the line. Andrew Johns to Brent Gross, back it goes to Logan Swan, and the second try for Logan Swan.
The performance at Hull was better than the performance against Leeds. Andrew Johns didn't play poorly. Everyone just stepped up another couple of gears than they had previously found against Leeds. That's the story of the day. You know, the cynics, the critics, those who should know better but don't quite really, put Andrew Johns down on that performance. They've got no idea what they're talking about.
For the first 16, 20 minutes, we were chasing shadows and we were 16-0 down before we come out of the changing room. Such was the effect that he engendered upon the Warrington side, and Warrington managed to hang on and they won reasonably comfortably at that. But we also felt it was good for us because it allowed us to get used to that further surrounding Andrew Johns, and the players actually, as the second half progressed, they enjoyed playing against him, and I thought that boded well for the playoffs.
An exciting denouement, and all the playoff places are decided. But that's not quite the whole story.
You're lucky, you're so lucky.
A dream come true. For many years, the bridesmaid, Lee, had at last made it to the altar after winning the 2004 National League One Grand Final and earning promotion to Super League. They got straight down to business, preparing for the top flight, but it was never going to be easy.
When we went into Super League, we was under no illusions that it was going to be a tough task. But it was the things that faced us, really. The players had all gone. So, you know, I'm not knocking the players, but you're left with the players that nobody wants. The overseas quota, you've got to try and get people over in time, which affects your pre-season, and which weren't ideal for us.
The circumstances weren't ideal either when they went into round 3 against Salford. They had a bit of confidence after pushing Warrington close the week before, but they were still looking for league points.
Very, very disappointed as a coach in that result, being at home, being on TV, and there was some individual performances there that was really poor and cost us the game. But again, we stayed positive through it and tried to build on for the following game.
They got their first win of the season here in round 8. A great result for the fans on the terraces at a time of great turmoil behind the scenes. 2 of their directors, Stephen Blakely and Derek Beaumont, who've been supporters of Darren Abram, resigned.
This was the bank holiday period, and leading into that game, it was a horrible week. On the match day, you know, we spoke about how close we'd gone in previous days, and we'd got to stay positive, and London was coming up here expecting to roll us over and things, and the players really stood up and was counted, and we got our first win, which was great. And as I say, we dedicated it to both them directors that had resigned, that had helped to structure the club into Super League.
It meant they and their fans travelled to St Helens the following week in a buoyant mood, but their bubble burst in the first half when St Helens ran in 46 unanswered points.
That first half, like, they just blew us away. It felt like you had 5 people running at you every time, and you take one and he just passed to the next one, and then he'd get taken, he'd pass to the next one. Like for the first half, it was like that.
St Helens was on fire, and you know, it's like when you walk in a dark room and you know you turn the lights on and there's rats on mice run everywhere. That's what St Helens were like on their attack. If somebody made a break, there were just white shirts everywhere in support, and I think we went in 46-0 down at half-time, something like that, and I give them a goal to go out and win the second half.
They did just that, delighting their fans.
I just remember like the game was over and we were just starting to, you know, come back into it a little bit in the second half, and I was just singing, all we want's 1 try, and then we'd score that try, and then all we want's 2 tries. And it's sort of hard to get down when you got that going on behind you. It cheers you up a little bit.
It was great preparation for their next game against Hull. Now they had some self-belief, and it earned them a draw. The following week they lost to Salford, then got a result which took them off the bottom of the table for the first time, but only briefly.
At this point, the players that I'd kept from National League One, most of them was achieving better records on the track, in the gym, and obviously you could see their intensity and skill level rising to meet what Super League brings.
That was one really good game to be a part of. It was going either way there for a bit, and we stuck in the arm wrestle, and once we got over that hill, it was sort of downhill running from there, and we showed how we can really play.
It was to be their last win of the season. They'd managed to put in some creditable performances in the second half of the year, notably against Leeds, Hull and this game against St Helens. But this was to be Darren Abrams' last game in charge. After the Saints game, he resigned, and then their loss the following week meant they were relegated, their Super League dream over.
As somebody looking in from the outside now, you know, you can say that we never got drubbed week in, week out, and we always put up a performance, and players have rang me up and said that, you know, they were sorry about their own individual performances, and you know, that it had nothing to do with myself. It was collectively, you know, what Super League brings and the pressures and, you know, the high players that you're playing against was the downfall of Leigh Centurions.
And then there were three. Widnes, Salford and Wakefield had each prepared for a big season, and as the kick-off loomed, they all had high ambitions.
Perhaps of the three, though, most was expected of Wakefield. They'd finished last season in the sixth and had beaten Hull in their first playoff. Their coach was even voted Coach of the Year. Last year's wild card, would they be the Kings this time round or the Jokers?
We sort of set ourselves like small goals, and you know, in terms of every game instead of the whole season or 4 games. So that's probably how we went into pre-season, and, you know, sort of set all those goals, and that's probably how we came out firing at the start of the season.
Scalp number 1 in round number 1. Last year's grand finalists Bradford were taken by surprise on their own doorstep.
It was a great win for us because you know, we haven't really beaten Bradford that many times as Wakefield, Trinity, and that, and it was a really good win. But you know, we went into the game thinking that, you know, we could win, not thinking that, you know, we might win or we'll try to win. So that's probably why we came out on top.
Then round 2 against Wigan, the team who'd ended their playoffs last season.
You know, that day that a certain Wigan coach did mention, didn't give Wakefield any respect, and we used that as a bit of a motivation, to be honest, and it obviously worked because we got the victory on the day.
Thrilling win, and Wakefield looked like they picked up where they left off. But it's a long, long season, and there were plenty of disappointments to come, starting the following week at London, when they were well and truly beaten 72 points to 8.
It just shows, I mean, rugby league's a very funny game, and once you think that you've cracked it, then you come back down to earth with a big bang, and that's exactly what happened to us.
And it wasn't a one-off. 3 games later, they met St Helens in rampant form.
St Helens on the day can do that to anyone, so it's a really difficult task going to St Helens and trying to get 2 points off them. We had all the big guns playing that day, and if you mark one player at St Helens, then somebody else will come and take it off you, so it's a really difficult task, but I think we did take some out from the game on his first half performance.
Battered, maybe, but not beaten. Their self-belief was still strong and attitude positive when they travelled to top of the table Leeds in round 8.
We went into the game having that mentality of, you know, we're going to win, and everyone on that day, everyone, I think the whole 17 of us put in, and that's probably why we came up on top. That's probably the highlight of our season. It was awesome to be the first team to actually beat them on their home turf.
But it set them off on a slump. They won just 1 game in the last 7, but 2 of their defeats were against Leigh and Widnes, the 2 sides rooted at the bottom of the table. They were now just 2 points higher than Widnes when they faced Salford. It's a do-or-die game.
We did stress that this game was really important that we got the 2 points because, like we say, Salford are a team that are just hovering above relegation, same as ourselves, so it was really important that we got that win.
The good mood wasn't to last long, though. They then played a Leeds side on sparkling form, with one Ali Lawatiti scoring 5 tries.
The boys were devastated afterwards. I mean, he came off the bench to score 5 tries, so it just shows what kind of performance he put in that night.
It was embarrassing more than anything, you know.
to be honest. I nearly walked off the field because it was that bad. At that stage, you just gotta get on with the game, and you gotta try and do what's right for you, as an individual that will help get the team back on track.
It was to be the end of the road for Shane McNally. When Wakefield lost to Huddersfield, he was sacked, and his assistant Tony Smith took the reins.
I didn't feel that Shane was under any pressure at that time, and I think it did come as a shock to me that when he did get relieved of his duties. But as an assistant coach, all he can do is step up to the challenge if that's what you want to do, and I relished it.
And after a tight defeat at St Helens, he guided them through a winning spree that was to save their season. First stop, Bradford.
I put it down to the team performance. It was really good. It was a seesaw type of game, and it could have gone either way, but even if we hadn't have won, I was really pleased with the performance and the attitude of the players, and that's what I've said from day one since I took over.
Then a win to put daylight between them and Widnes.
I feel that was the most important game of the season, really. I know Frank was talking it up as regards players are going to have to find jobs if they lose this game, so there were a big contrast in coaching philosophies there, so I approached it just as any other game, and I took the pressure off the players, and I think we were 32-0 up at half-time, and I was really pleased with that performance.
And then a trip to the JJB Stadium.
Oh, great ball from Orr. Hansen gets the ball away to Moran. Moran with the first try. Obst, that's a good ball. Halpenny. Oh, he's gone, Radlinski. And Halpenny over under the sticks. Quick play the ball. Here is Sam Obst. Obst, he has got Halpenny. Oh, Halpenny's in for his second. And it's with Moran. And Moran will slide the kick in, looking for Danny Orr. And Orr has got the try.
The result could have gone either way, but if we had have got them 2 points, I wouldn't have been too disheartened, because in my eyes it was as good as a victory anyway.
The try that clinched it was a controversial one, the Wigan players insisting Solomona scored after the ref had called last. That win lifted them out of the mire and into playoff contention.
We had a really mixed bag of emotions. I mean, first of all, from taking over, there's the pressure of relegation. Then, after you've won 2 or 3 games, people start talking you up for top 6, and then when you lose a game, then they're saying they've nothing to play for. So it's been a really, what can I say, different season towards the end.
They were to have just one more win this season, ending the table in 10th, but their performances in those final fixtures helped end their season on a high.
Inconsistency has been his consistency. That's how I'd sum it up. But I think if we can improve against the teams that are around us near the bottom of the table, then we're not going to be far off.
When you're used to being near the bottom, you can get dizzy if you climb too high too quickly. It was a nice feeling, though, for the Salford City Reds. The first half of the season had been a good one for them. Mind you, they'd prepared for it. Carl Harrison had assembled a squad with some exciting young talent. At the hub of it, the starlet Luke Robinson.
I felt with the improvement to the squad we'd brought in that we could finish in that middle group of teams, which goes right from 4th right down to 10th, and to finish as high as that as possible.
Their first win came in round 2 against a London side fancied for the playoffs. After a narrow defeat against Wigan in the opening game, things were looking good.
We started the season real brightly, and we set ourselves some real tough defensive goals this year, and for the first part of the season we was magnificent in defence, and against London that night we had to be, because London had a good team, and we battled marvellously and got the deserved win to get us off the mark.
Off the mark and on a roll. All the way up to round 11 they put in some sound and solid performances, winning more games than they lost and reaching 5th in the table.
We were flying. I think I made a statement in one of the press conferences, if we get any higher I'll get vertigo, and then the injuries hit, but he was looking real strong at that stage.
All good things must come
At all. We was always aspiring to the teams above us and trying to just climb the ladder slowly. Once we dropped down the ladder, we then had another goal to climb it, you know, one step at a time.
First step, Huddersfield.
Steve O described it as the most dour game of the season, but we didn't care. To give our Chelsea any chance of staying in that middle group, we had to win that game, and thankfully we did. The pressure was on then, you know, a lot of questions being asked, and but the players, you know, stood up, and I was really relieved off that game. That's possibly, you know, the turning point of the season for us.
Meanwhile, for Widnes, the pressure was on. They'd escaped relegation in 2004 by the skin of their teeth. No way was that ever going to happen again, they said. So they drafted in some household names to help turn their luck around. When new captain Terry O'Connor collected his shirt at the pre-season presentation, the air was alive with hope and expectation. They faced a tough start, though. Saints, Bradford, Leeds and Wigan were their opening 4 fixtures.
If we could have, out of our first 4 games, won 2 of them, it would have been a great start that no one would have thought we were capable of doing.
Instead, they had to make do with 1 from the 4, but what a win that was.
It wasn't just a win, it was a great win, and you know, I quite often go back to that tape and look at how we did it, and everyone was on a high at that stage, and we felt good leading into that game because we were satisfied with the week before, the performance the week before against Saints, and we were in good heart for that game, and you know, really we beat them well.
They had to wait until Easter for the next win over Lee, the only team below them in the table.
The win against Lee out here was an absolute must, and at that stage in the season we were getting a lot of injuries. The injuries were really starting to hit home at that stage, and if I remember rightly, I played quite a few of the players a number of players from the under-21s, and they went very well. I think Paul Crook, the 18-year-old, got player of the match in that game from memory, and we got a well-earned 2 points. So it was a must that we won all 3 games against Lee, and we did do that this year. So that was one of our goals that we did achieve.
Another 5 losses followed, including a heartbreaking one to Wigan by a single point.
It was my first game back playing at Wigan, so it would have been quite a memorable night for me going back there and coming away with a win for my hometown club. But same again, there was Kevin Brown, I'm sure he won't mind me saying, got a try that was, I think it was a forward pass, a knock-on and an offside all in one try. But they scored it, they got it, went through, and then Dennis come up at the end with a drop goal, which got them the win by 1 point. So that again was a frustrating night. There's not been so many not frustrating nights actually.
As temperatures rose throughout the summer, so did their performances, starting with an important win over Wakefield.
Terry O'Connor is over the line for the first Widnes try. That was the type of rugby league we've been trying to play all year. We played that day, well, I don't know what happened, we just played, the sun was shining. We got the bounce of the ball for the first time in the entire season, actually go our way. And it gave us the confidence. We scored some great tries that day and thoroughly deserved the win.
St Helens in round 14 should have been an exercise in damage limitation if the predictions were anything to go by. Widnes didn't agree.
False goal. Done what he always does, and that's his world-class play. I think in the last 7 minutes he run the line, ducked underneath 2 hard defenders, set up a try. So it seems to be something emerging that all the games that we're in the balance that have not gone our way.
And then Paul Skelthorpe decided to put a drop goal over, and that made the difference. And of course they beat us by 7 points. Now I consider that a real close result against a very, very good side.
Except they didn't get the league points. They did in their next 2 games, wins over Huddersfield and Lee, and in round 18, another point from Bradford.
With about 16 minutes to go in the game, it was 19-0 for us. Bradford never looked like getting close to our line. There was a significant event that happened in that game that I thought swung the game. They were attacking 30 metres off their line, and 2 of our tacklers, Shane Millard and Smithy, Mark Smith, they had a head clash, and both were knocked out on the floor, and with 2 men out of our defensive line, they went the full length of the field and scored under the post, and that ignited Bradford to come back into it.
So we did good to go there to Wadsworth and pick up a point, but the sad thing was that it should have been 2. We were by far the best team on the day.
Then came their round 20 head-to-head with Salford. The Vikings simply had to close the gap to stand any chance of survival, but Salford knew they couldn't afford to lose either.
The pressure was on Widnes, you know. Frank had spoke it up all week about this being Widnes' grand final. We're only halfway through the season, and if they're playing grand finals halfway through the season, they were desperate. So we knew if we could finish Widnes off then, they were nearly dead and buried. And we did do.
And it was at that stage that that I started thinking, that the players had started thinking about the end of the season and the worst happening. And that was heartbreaking because I know we were good enough to win it. I just didn't have reasons for it. I couldn't give reasons. I couldn't give excuses. It was just, we were prepared to go out and get the results as a team, and we didn't get them. It wasn't even losing that upset me. It was the manner in which we lost.
It gave Salford breathing space, and when they beat Wakefield in round 25, relegation was no longer a threat. The Reds finished the year in 9th place, the same as in the previous year, but far more satisfying.
Finished the season with 22 points and still saying 9th. Last year we finished on 16 points and finished in 9th. So that's 3 more wins. People don't realise how hard it is to get an extra win in Super League. A really good season, disappointing spells, but a vast improvement on the previous season, heading in the right direction.
For Widnes, there were no positives. In a quirk of fate, it was their arch-rivals Warrington who dealt the fatal blow, the 60 points to 16 defeat, hammering the final nail in the coffin.
Actually, the worst feeling I've had in 23 years of first-grade coaching. I don't blame anyone for that. I think circumstances have happened that people have no control over. It's not one thing that's sent us down, it's a combination of many. But as head coach, I take total responsibility for the efforts of the players on the field. And if it's got to be a sacrificial lamb, then so be it.
Can't find any positives really from a team. We've played well in some games, but at the end of the day, we've been relegated. So find a positive out of that, I don't think you can.
After 28 rounds, Widnes and Leigh were relegated. The top 6 teams would all still have plenty to play for as the playoffs of Super League 10 got underway.
If the rest of the season's a dress rehearsal, it's time for the command performance. 6 games, 6 teams, it's time for the playoffs.
From here on in, those 6 teams were starting afresh, the Super League trophy there for the best of them. For some, the odds were not good. No team has ever won a grand final outside of the top 2. Could this year be any different? First up, 3rd versus 6th. Bulls against Broncos.
We knew it was going to be tough. The noises coming out of London was that they fancied it, and I think most pundits were suggesting that we'd get caught soft, and London were capable of beating any team. We've seen that. They've done all the top teams through the season. They were playing well themselves. They've made the 6. A bit of euphoria around the joint.
Semi-final week's always different, I think. As much as you think it's not going to be, you turn up on Monday and there's just a different feeling in the camp. You know, the coaches can feel it and the players can feel it and everybody's getting into it.
And now it's with Paul Sykes, looking for John Wells, and Wells will get the first try for London. Here is Robbie Paul, 10 metres out. Bradford with Easton Harris, drop of the shoulder, and Harris gets him.
A tight first half with Bradford edging ahead thanks to Vinacolo's try, but London were far from down and out.
We just needed Bradford to play their part and to be off their game and put off their game by that. But full credit to them, they didn't do that. They stood up and they handled the test, and they were just in a little bit better shape than us.
The first half was a very difficult game. I remember that coming in at half-time thinking we've got to win this. They've had a big shot at the end. Luckily for us, you know, they kind of crumbled in the second half and we produced another good performance.
Jamie Peacock, they've got 2 men wide on the overlap. Jamie Peacock going on his own. Peacock all the way. Wonderful try from the Bradford skipper. Here is Harris. Harris with another dink over the top. Oh, they've all let it bounce. And Ian Henderson has taken the gift.
We spoke about it behind the line when we were under the pump, and you know, the guys said we've got to go out with some pride and stuff like that, and we did. We fought back and we showed what we could do if we had have been able to stick with it a little bit more consistently. But I definitely think that the Broncos supporters and the Broncos faithful will be very happy with how we retired the colours.
Here is Leon Price, and Leon Price gets the ball away to brother Carl, and Carl Price goes over.
London bow out of the playoffs and Bradford march on. Now it's do or die time for Hull or Warrington. The Wolves, with Andrew Johns, have home advantage, but will that make any difference?
That was a big bonus playing at home, but we knew Hull, they're the only team still to not been beaten in any knockout competition this year, so we knew how tough it was going to be.
Yeah, it's a daunting task going to Warrington. It was a daunting task facing them at the stadium, you know, with the whole Andrew Johns situation.
Here is Whiting, he stumbles his way, gives it to Blacklock, it's first blood to Hull! Horn, kick high, tester for Chris Bridge, Blacklock's after this, he's got it, Blacklock's second try! Blacklock for the hat-trick, Blacklock for the hat-trick for Hull! Andrew Johns, Andrew Johns, Andrew Johns, Andrew Johns for Warrington!
The Warrington fans are great, they really are, and I think they sweep the team along at certain times. One of our goals, Angela, of that game was to silence the crowd, because we felt if we silenced the crowd, we'd have stopped Andrew Johns and we'd have put doubts in the Warrington players' minds, and we succeeded.
Matu Tony, great ball. Yeeman again. Yeeman. Yeeman for Hull. That is it. It's all over. Come on. King and Whiting to complete the night for Hull. John Keir with a huge smile, and Paul Cullen's season comes to an end.
The juice had gone. Now, I was very disappointed, to be fair, with the last 10 minutes, although I won't spend too long beating myself or anybody else up over it. The bottom line is that this is a game of logistics. It's not about what's written on paper or what's happened before. A lot of it means nothing when the whistle goes, and that's a classic case of that. Their front four are very important to Hull. Our front four are very important to Warrington. The bottom line was we lost 2 props in the game. 2 against 4 doesn't work at that level.
Warrington's season had come to an end. They started out wanting to improve on the 8th of 2004. They exceeded their goal.
It's been better than any other season I've been at Warrington. There's been ups and there's been downs, but for the first time in 8 years there's been a lot more ups than there's been downs, and can only take satisfaction of that. And if anybody would have said start of the season we're going to be 1 point off third when I've Andrew Johns playing was the end of the year, put me in at Winnick Hospital, please. That's what it would have been. So it's been a classic season for us, and disappointed at the end, but we're not arguing.
A week later, St Helens come up against Leeds. Both teams had had a week off as reward for finishing first and second. They also had the luxury of a second chance, so whoever lost in this game would live to fight another day.
Every game, you know, is like a final. Certainly when you get to the knockout stages, you know, we was lucky. You know, we had two opportunities, and that's the, you know, the prize you get for playing well consistently all year.
It rained for 4 days solid before the game. The pitch was just waterlogged and muddy, and I think we knew beforehand it was going to be a lot of errors in there. And the team that controlled the ball best would come out on top.
Maguire has pinched the ball one-on-one, and Danny Maguire has got Leeds off to the perfect start. Diskin dummy half. Diskin, Ward will score! It's with Wilkin, and Wilkin was played at, and Lauatiti's picked it up. He's got Maguire in support. I don't think he's going to need him. He's got the legs on Wellens. Lauatiti to the line. Wonderful try. Sinfield standing back. Here's Kevin Sinfield. Here's the drop goal. There it is.
There was nothing between the two teams. You know, even though we led 19-0, we deserved to be in the lead, and it was close. But it just shows me how close, you know, games can be, and how you can easily be 19-0 up, or occasionally 19-0 down, without doing too much different.
This is Lyon. Jamie Lyon, can he produce something? Yes. He can.
Well, he's a freak. He's world class. You know, and a great guy as well. You know, he's certainly not one who'll you know, he'll keep his feet on the ground because he's that kind of lad as well. You know, he never praises himself. You know, when you give it him, he just shrugs it off. He's just a great player.
We had a bit of a rush at the end where we had to play a fair amount of risk in our football. Most of it worked, and we had a couple of last-ditch attempts, but in the end, it was a game that could have gone either way if we'd have taken our opportunities earlier in the game.
The defending champions then book their place in the grand final. St Helens have to wait to see who they will play next. Hull were away to Bradford, where things started badly for the boys in blue and gradually got worse.
Henderson gets the ball down. First try to the Bradford ball. Vinacolo played it to Henderson. Here is Fielden, and Fielden again was caught, and they didn't like it.
I'm not surprised. That's the third time it's gone for him. This is a shocker, and it was right in front of the official.
The sending off didn't help, and that was a real disappointing way for Stephen Kearney to finish his career. 14 years he'd been a first-grade rugby league professional, both sides of the world. First time he'd been sent off, and 7 minutes into the game, and it deflated our play. I mean, you could visibly see with the body language, it was like somebody let the air out of the balloon. It deflated us, and it just so happened we were playing Bradford at full strength. Bradford at full strength with great confidence and executed so well. And as you rightly say, it was scary because down that left flank when they've got Vinacolo and Happe and Myers coming at you, they do take some stopping, and they really did steamroll us. Posted a massive score against us. It hurt us, and it still does hurt, and it will remain with us throughout the off-season, and that will be one of the driving forces Angela for next year.
This is Harvey. Harvey has got Leslie with him. Here's the hat-trick for Leslie Vinacolo.
It's an emotional day that day for a lot of players because it was his last game. We had a feeling we were going to win because, you know, the emotion was with us.
Season for Hull, who proved they belong among the game's elite sides.
As a team, we want to be remembered as winners, and we took one of the 2 trophies on offer. So, you know, we planned for a trophy, and we got one, and we planned to win a playoff game because Hull's never won a playoff game, and you know we did that. So, in that respect, we achieved our goals from what we set at the start of the season.
Bradford's win now sets up a classic encounter. The Bulls and the Saints have fought some of the greatest tussles in Super League. Now they come head-to-head again for the right to get to the final.
St Helens at Knowsley Road, whatever team they put out, we knew they were going to be really, really tough. We hadn't had a massive hit out the week before in respect of toughness, so that was the question being asked. Can we get into one of those tight, anxious, desperate struggles which those playoff games are?
Wide they come, and wide again, and they are in the corner, Bradford. Now Johnson, Stuart Johnson. Cunningham to Wilkin, Wilkin with the try. By a great crossfield ball, Anders underneath it, palms the ball down, and here's a chance for Wilkin. It's the second for Wilkin. And Deacon flips the pass now then. They have the overlap here. Langley going for the corner. He's in.
Our guys certainly made it tough. You know, we had the lead at half-time. And you know, I said we give it everything. Maybe, you know, a couple of times in good ball, we just lacked a bit of patience with the ball. But you know, the game was so close, and you know, at the end it was won by a goal.
Well, here is Deacon. He stops. He goes for the one. Here's Harris. They've had men loaded down this left-hand side. Harpy, Champagne Harpy will take the Bradford Bulls back to Old Trafford.
It was a big factor for them, you know, missing the likes of Longy and Scully, I think they only made a big difference from that game, but for us they weren't playing, so you know, we managed to dig in and come away with the win in the last 10 minutes.
For St Helens, who ended the regular season top of the heap, Super League 10 was over.
I sense that we'll gain something out of the year and the disappointment and adversity that we have felt and experienced in October, and carry it into 2006. I'm pretty confident that we'll have a very, very hungry team next year.
Super League 10, the grand final. Another sellout at Old Trafford on a warm October evening. When the legendary band Madness and Leslie Garrett are your warm packs, you know those at the top of the bill are going to give top-notch entertainment. Leeds versus Bradford, two giants of rugby league, one big prize.
I remember sitting at home watching the Bradford Saints game, sat there with the hairs on the back of my neck, waiting in anticipation of the week after, and we prepared great through that week as well, and a lot of excitement about the place, and I felt we could go there and really do a job on Bradford. Last year was just happy to be there in the final. We'd not played well all year, and then peaked for one game against Leeds and luckily got to the grand final, whereas this year was on the back of a lot of good form and confidence in playing well. We'd really earned the right to be in the grand finals, whereas last year we hadn't, so we've earned the right to be there. We wanted to get there and win.
This is Duneman, a kick to the in goal, Maguire for the Rhinos! Back to Deacon, Deacon then longs to Leon Price. Oh, it's opened up for Leon Price! It has opened up for Price, and Leon Price scores for Bradford!
You never know in finals, it's an arm wrestle, and it proved to be, the game proved to be an arm wrestle. They out-arm wrestled us the previous season. Their kicking game was superior to ours the year before, and I think in the end our last plays, our kicking game, were just slightly better than Leeds' on the day, which gave us some clear position to win the game.
They're 10 metres away, Deacon. Not the best to Langley, had to stop. Langley though, Langley still going.
They're falling off them, Leeds defenders.
Leslie will not be stopped.
your family and your friends are there, and there's 30,000 Leeds fans there, and it's a tough one. We had people leaving. There's a lot of emotion after the game, because we've worked together for 2 years with some special people, and they're moving on now, and some are retiring, some are going to other clubs, and we wanted to send them off the right way. And I suppose sometimes you can't write the perfect ending, but I think we all realised what a special 2 years it was together, and we'll have some great memories from that.
Bradford had made Super League history, the first team outside of the top 2 to win the trophy. A victory for nerve, grit, determination and character.
What we're saying now is any team that finishes 6th, if you're confident enough and your form's good enough and you're not worried about home field advantage, you can go to the grand final. We've done it from 3rd, we had 2 knockout games. Being healthy helps at that time of the year with your troops, but if you've got a full deck and you finish in the 6th, you can now win the grand final. That's what we're saying. We've opened the door in that respect. That it's tough, don't get me wrong, it's hard on the energy levels, you've got to be smart and things like that, but it's doable.
In another plot twist, Jamie Peacock will play for Leeds next season. His ambition to take the trophy away from the Bradford Bulls. A great storyline for next year, but for now, how would he sum up Super League 10?
Unreal. Started poorly, finished in the best way possible. Fantastic.